My name is Ryan Harris, and what I'm about to share changed me in ways I never thought possible. On March 14th, 2023, my life took a turn that left me breathless, bewildered. I'm 27 years old, living in Austin, Texas. To anyone who knew me, I had a reputation for being unapologetically myself. Gay, proud, and determined to carve out a life in a state that hasn't always been kind to people like me. I grew up in a small town outside of Austin, a place where rainbow flags were few and whispers behind closed doors were plenty. But I learned early on that hiding who I was only suffocated my spirit. I made it my mission to be a beacon of authenticity, not just for myself, but for the younger kids in my community who felt as alone as I once did. Life wasn't easy. Sure, Austin offered a haven, but even within its liberal embrace, my days were filled with microaggressions, rejection, and a lingering ache for acceptance, from others and from myself. I thought I had it all figured out. A steady job as a graphic designer, a vibrant group of friends, and even a loving boyfriend, Mateo, who brought out the best in me. But deep down, I still carried scars that years of self-doubt and societal judgment had left behind. Then came that fateful Tuesday. The day started like any other. I kissed Mateo goodbye, grabbed my iced coffee, and hit the road to meet a client. The Texas sun was relentless, beating down as I navigated the bustling streets of downtown Austin. I was preoccupied, thinking about the designs I'd prepared, the playlists I'd share with Mateo later, and whether I'd remembered to pay the electric bill. Life, as usual, was a whirlwind, until it wasn't. I don't remember much about the accident itself, just a deafening screech of tires, the sharp jolt of metal colliding, and the world going black. Later, I'd learned that a delivery truck had run a red light, slamming into my car and flipping it onto its side. They said I was clinically dead for 6 minutes and 48 seconds. But those 6 minutes felt like a lifetime, and more. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. No pain, no chaos, just an overwhelming stillness that wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I found myself floating above the scene, watching as paramedics worked frantically to free me from the crumpled car. My body lay motionless, but I felt more alive than I ever had. There was no fear, only peace. Then the light appeared. It wasn't just any light. It was radiant, pulsating, and alive with a love so profound it brought tears to my eyes. I felt myself being drawn toward it, weightless and unafraid. As I moved closer, the world I knew faded away, replaced by a landscape of indescribable beauty. Fields of colors I'd never seen, music that resonated deep within my soul, and a presence that made every worry, every doubt, every scar melt away. And then I saw him, Jesus. He stood there, arms open, his eyes filled with a compassion so deep it felt like he could see every part of me. The good, the bad, the broken, and loved me anyway. He wasn't how I'd imagined him from Sunday school illustrations. His presence was both majestic and profoundly personal, like he'd been waiting for me, just me all along. Ryan, he said, his voice a melody of strength and gentleness. You are so deeply loved. I broke down. All the walls I'd built to protect myself, all the years of pretending to be stronger than I felt, came crashing down. But I stammered. I'm not perfect. I'm not enough. He finished, his eyes softening. You've always been enough, Ryan. My love for you doesn't come with conditions. You are my child, and I see you for who you truly are. We talked, though talk doesn't quite capture it. It was as if our souls were communicating in a way words never could. He showed me moments from my life, times I'd felt abandoned, misunderstood, or broken. But through his eyes, I saw the strength I'd shown, the love I'd given, and the beauty in my journey. He didn't dismiss my pain. He acknowledged it, honored it, and reminded me that it had shaped the man I'd become. Jesus spoke of love. Not just romantic love, though he smiled warmly when I mentioned Mateo, but the kind of love that transcends labels, boundaries, and fears. The world has tried to tell you that you don't belong, he said, but you do. Not just in the world, but in my kingdom. You were made in my image. Ryan, and your capacity to love is one of the greatest gifts I've given you." He then showed me glimpses of the world, its beauty, its brokenness, and its potential. "You have a role to play," he told me. "Your story will touch lives in ways you can't yet imagine. Be bold in your love, Ryan. Be bold in your truth. The world needs it." As my time with him came to an end, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. "You'll face challenges," he said, "but never doubt that I am with you. Always." And just like that, I was back, gasping for air, surrounded by paramedics, and painfully aware of my broken body. But my spirit was unshaken, renewed, and filled with a purpose I'd never known before. The road to recovery was long. Physically, I had to relearn how to walk, how to move, how to live. Emotionally, I grappled with the enormity of what I'd experienced. But spiritually, I was on fire. I've spent every day since sharing my story, not to preach, but to remind people of the boundless love and grace that exists for all of us, no matter who we are or where we come from. I found myself reflecting deeply on society's expectations, the shame so many of us carry, and the lengths we go to hide our true selves. Jesus had shown me that these burdens were never ours to bear alone. He knew the fear I felt walking into rooms where my identity was questioned or judged. He saw the tears I shed after arguments with family members who couldn't understand. And he reminded me that love, real, unconditional love, has no room for shame. There were days during my recovery when I doubted myself. What if people didn't believe me? What if my story was dismissed? But then I'd think back to that moment in the light, to Jesus' words echoing in my heart. "Your story will touch lives." Those words became my anchor. I started writing, speaking, and connecting with others who had faced their own struggles with identity, faith, and belonging. One day, while sharing my experience at a local LGBTQ+ support group, an older man named Charles approached me. He'd lived decades in silence, suppressing his identity out of fear. "Your story gave me hope," he said, tears streaming down his face. "For the first time, I feel seen." Moments like that reminded me why I was still here. They reminded me of the responsibility that came with this second chance. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving, about helping others see that they, too, were worthy of love and acceptance. Jesus had also shown me the interconnectedness of humanity, how every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, ripples outward in ways we can't always see. He emphasized the importance of community, of building bridges rather than walls. In a world so often divided by politics, religion, and fear, he urged me to be a peacemaker. "Ryan," he had said, "people will hurt you, misunderstand you, and reject you. But remember, their actions come from their own pain, not from your worth. Love them anyway. Show them my light." Those words stayed with me, especially on the harder days. Days when the news was filled with stories of hate crimes, when protests erupted against LGBTQ+ rights, when people I loved questioned my faith because of who I was. But even in those moments, I felt his presence, steady and unwavering. As I continued to share my story, I began to notice a shift, not just in others, but in myself. The scars I'd carried for so long didn't feel as heavy anymore. The shame that once consumed me had been replaced by a quiet confidence, a knowing that I was loved exactly as I am. And with that knowledge came freedom. Jesus had given me more than a glimpse of heaven. He'd given me a mission, to love boldly, to speak truth, to remind others that they, too, are reflections of divine love. And every time I doubted myself, I'd think back to his eyes, those eyes that saw every part of me and still called me enough. Today, as I write this, I know my journey is far from over. There will be more challenges, more lessons, and more opportunities to grow. But I face them with an open heart, knowing that I am never alone. Jesus showed me that life isn't about perfection. It's about connection, to ourselves, to each other, and to the divine love that holds us all.